1652, the High Commonwealth Puritan citizen. By 1652, under the Puritan Commonwealth, modesty became the law of the land. This high-status Puritan citizen dress utilizes expensive top-tier silk wool camlet, but pairs it with a massive white linen apron and cape collar to project civic order and religious purity. 1654, the countryside market woman habit. In 1654, away from London's political centers, lower-class English women prioritized pure utility. This countryside outfit uses durable domestic wool and front-lacing mechanics, allowing market women and laborers to perform daily work while staying within the legally enforced modesty codes of the Republic. 1656, the late Commonwealth softening gown. By 1656, despite the severe aesthetic restrictions of the High Protectorate, elite English dress began to subtly push boundaries. This transitional taffeta gown reintroduces soft plum silks and wider elbow sleeves, tracking a quiet resurgence of decorative display among royalist sympathizers preparing London for the eventual return of the monarchy. 1658, the exile return court silhouette. 1658 marks a major engineering pivot in English dress. Following the death of Cromwell, elite fashion eagerly anticipated a royal return, reviving long-pointed, heavily boned stomachers and daring off-the-shoulder necklines that completely broke away from Puritan restraint. 1660, the Charles II Restoration gown. In 1660, the return of Charles II exploded into an era of unparalleled luxury. This breathtaking cloth of silver gown utilizes a hyper-extended, heavily corseted torso and a daringly low neckline, visually erasing a decade of Puritan rule to announce the triumphant return of a flamboyant French-influenced court. 1661, the early Restoration court habit. In 1661, following the coronation of Charles II, the English court completely embraced French-influenced luxury. This sky-blue satin gown utilizes an elongated, heavily boned torso and an off-the-shoulder neckline, intentionally reintroducing decorative excess to erase the memory of Puritan restraint. 1664, the High Restoration daytime dress. By 1664, London fashion under the restored monarchy reached a peak of playful texturing. This yellow taffeta gown utilizes clusters of small silk ribbon loops, a massive trend of the decade at Sumbus, to add visual depth and movement to the rigid, elongated Baroque torso. 1667, the post-Great Plague somber gown. In 1667, after enduring a devastating plague and fire, London's elite fashion adopted a more restrained tone. This black damask gown retains the long, rigid court silhouette, but discards flashy ribbons and gems, using solid textures to maintain a dignified, somber appearance during a period of national recovery. 1670, the early loose mantua gown. 1670 marks a profound structural milestone in fashion history with the birth of the mantua. Originating as a loose, unboned comfort gown for informal daytime wear, this style allowed women to escape their heavy, stiff court bodices behind closed doors. 1672, the informal working-class kirtle. In 1672, while London's court wallowed in imported silks and loose mantuas, the countryside relied on the timeless utility of the kirtle. This version, dyed in durable domestic woad blue wool, features the essential front-lacing system that acted as both support and protective armor for market women navigating the rigid economic realities of the Restoration. 1674, the gentry promenade mantua. By 1674, the informal mantua was adapted for outdoor wear. By By pulling the long outer skirts backward and looping them over the hips, women purposefully created a dramatic draped bustle effect that showcased their expensive embroidered underpetticoats. (1677) The High Court regal habit. In 1677, a fierce style rivalry divided English closets. Formal events strictly demanded this rigid velvet court dress, which used heavy whalebone reinforcement and real ermine trim to project institutional power, resisting the growing popularity of the loose mantua. 1680, the high Baroque structured mantua. By 1680, the transformation was complete. The informal mantua became formal court attire. Tailors learned to pleat and structure the loose gown over stiff understays, permanenting the draped rear skirts into a grand train that came to define high Baroque elegance. (1683) The Late Reign. Charles II court dress. 1683 represents the final years of King Charles II's court. This emerald satin gown utilizes a hyper-extended, narrow torso and slashed sleeves to deliberately expose fine white silk underneath, standing as a physical symbol of high luxury at the close of the era. 1685. The Imperial Triumphant Gown. 1685 marks the rise of James II and a brief, hyper-luxurious court shift. This cloth of gold coronation gown transforms the female form into an unyielding, wider-than-life monument designed to project absolute national power and dynastic security. 1688. The Aristocratic Incognito Refugee Ensemble. 1688 marks the onset of the Glorious Revolution. As political power shifted, aristocratic women moved onto the roads of England. This traveling gown replaces delicate court satins with rugged wool broadcloth, using a deep black hood to maintain a dignified incognito presence. 1689. The Early William and Mary Court Silhouette. In 1689, the ascension of William and Mary introduced a dramatic vertical revolution. This velvet gown introduces the fontange headdress, stiffened lace tiers built over a wire frame on top of the head, transforming women into tall, architectural icons of the late 17th century. 1690. The early 1690s aristocratic daytime dress. By 1690, the silhouette grew increasingly architectural. This terracotta damask mantua uses heavy fringe trim along the draped train to create linear emphasis, echoing the intricate wood carvings found in late Stuart palace interiors. 1691. The tiered fringe striped mantua. By 1691, textile texture became highly complex. This striped lampas mantua uses vertical stripes to create an illusion of height, paired with multiple horizontal tiers of metallic fringe that mirrored the heavy, carved wooden paneling of late Baroque palaces. 1693. The towering fontange and extravagant train. 1693 represents the absolute height of the vertical fontange era. This black satin gown pairs an ultra-long, narrow torso with a towering 12-inch lace headframe, completely dominating the space and turning the wearer into a walking monument of court status. 1695. The wealthy London citizen elite habit. In 1695, London's mercantile elite used structured luxury to display civil success. This merchant's wife wears top-tier domestic broadcloth wool, copying the draped court mantua and fontange headdress, but scaling down the dimensions to stay within the boundaries of civic modesty. 1696. The high Baroque novelty dress. By 1696, European lace trades heavily influenced London style. This satin gown features a highly distinct novelty layout where the front underskirt is systematically layered with fine black needle lace over cream satin, adding a highly textured layer to the late Baroque silhouette. 1697. The elite domestic mourning mantua. In 1697, even informal mourning dress inside wealthy estates was a vehicle for display. This primrose yellow taffeta mantua pairs an open, flowing gown with a highly decorative lace apron, proving that high status could be maintained even behind closed doors during domestic mournings. 1698. The late Stuart oversized sleeve gown. By 1698, tailors shifted the focal point of luxury down to the sleeves. This ruby velvet gown features massive cartwheel cuffs lined with silver satin, forcing the arms into a wide, dramatic stance that visually commanded space at the late Stuart court. 1700. The turn-of-the-century regal mantua. At the turn of the 18th century, English fashion shed its vertical constraints to celebrate wide, fluid grandeur. This silver brocade mantua discards the towering lace fontange in favor of soft, natural ringlets falling onto naked shoulders, bringing a majestic, painterly finale to the grand Baroque era.